I went to an event this week, which was it was sort of a startup founders connector where you could go and meet people who are working in tech, in the startup space, investors, founders, I don't know, principals, family office representatives, that kind of thing. And the idea was to go and meet people and to network. Now, it was held in the ground floor of this sort of cafe restaurant space. And when I got there, there were firstly far fewer people than I expected would show up. So there were probably around 12 to 15 people in total. But the other thing was I didn't really get around to speaking to everyone. I spent about an hour and a half to 2 hours there. And I did move around a little bit and speak to people, but I didn't manage to speak to everybody that I could have spoken to. I mean, there were only 15 people. And what occurred to me was something that I've thought about before, which is if you have an event where you want people to meet each other, then people need to be standing up. And at this place, a lot of people were sitting down in sofas and chairs. And so it was really hard to go up and talk to a group of people unless you were going to stand up while talking to that person, which would just be weird because there's a group, or you could have a seat next to them. But if there are no seats next to them, then you couldn't really sit there. Plus, the thing about going and sitting down and talking to someone is there's definitely more of a psychological friction of having to go and sit down. And then when you want to leave, you have to get up and leave. It's much, much easier if you're standing up. It's much easier to just walk off and join another group. And it just got me thinking how so many times in life when we want to meet people, it always works out the best when we're standing up. I mean, of course, there are some situations where, I don't know, you go to college and you're sat next to somebody and you develop a friendship over time. I mean, yeah, if you're sat next to someone who you happen to click with, and this is much easier in places like work or college where you're sort of in the same situation together and you have a shared interest, a sort of a shared thing you're doing. In those situations, sure, you could be sitting down and meet someone that you could get on with. But in other situations, in general social situations, you're much better off standing up. And you're much better off in situations where people are standing up and people are therefore a bit more mobile. And especially so in a culture, if it's in a culture where people generally don't go out of their way to talk to other people. In a culture like that, you really want to be in a place where people are standing up. This is why it's sort of like an outdoor daytime rave is fantastic because even though it's loud, you can still talk to each other and hear each other, and everyone's stood up, everyone's dancing, and people are milling around, and you can just go and talk to people really easily. So those things work really well, primarily because people are stood up. Imagine if everyone was sat down, like in a theater performance. You actually can't go and just talk to people. It's really, really hard. So I was thinking if I was running an event, a social event for people to meet people, whatever the context is, it could be tech, it could be some kind of networking, or it could just be meet friends. I'd want people to be stood up, ideally, so that they actually mingle around, and then I'd encourage them to mingle around. If people were sitting down, I'd encourage them to swap seats, for example. But standing up really, really is the key. And it made me think that if I want to meet people and make new friends, I should try and find events where people are not sat down, but instead are standing up or walking around or something like that. I mean, maybe it's an event where people are sitting down for a part of it, but then they're stood up later on. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I went to one that was like that, where we had all of these talks by startup founders. And then afterwards, it was time to get some food, and they had some food laid out at the side. So everyone stood up to go and get some food. And of course, because we're all stood up, it's much easier, in the queue, or you're next to somebody to say, hey, my name's so-and-so, how's it going? So I think that can work too. But the key point was we didn't really start all talking to each other until we stood up. So that's something that I would encourage you, if you're trying to meet people, you're trying to get out there and socialize, you want to try and find events where you're active and mobile. It could be sports clubs, it could be going running, I don't know, somewhere at the beach, whatever it is, but you don't want to be at things where people are all just sitting down. I think the only exception I can think of to this is where you go somewhere where you're sitting down, but you are intentionally moving around talking to people. So this could be, for example, I've done eye gazing before, or I know you're not talking there, but you're interacting with people. I've done like a cacao ceremony once where we were kind of rotating in circles and having a conversation with each other. So I think those sorts of things are situations where, yes, you can actually talk to different people. But again, even that situation is easier if people are stood up and moving around. So that's my lesson for today is if you want to meet people, stand up.